Alright everyone, we start off today talking about how there's a war on education, a war on students and teachers. It's one that should result in a massive tidal wave of anger at and resentment towards the Democrats. Not just Biden, although he is, the buck stops there. We've seen it with the gubernatorial race in Virginia, of course with McAuliffe claiming that teachers shouldn't take an active role in kids' education. They should basically sit down and shut up. By the way, if McAuliffe doesn't manage to lose, despite literally pissing on every parent in the state of Virginia, that will say, I think, more about Virginia's voters than anyone else, and maybe at some point you get what you fucking deserve. Now, first and foremost, keep in mind that if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be links down below in a pinned comment to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I make several exclusive videos every single day. No matter how many that are on YouTube, there will always be at least 2 that are on those sites that don't go on YouTube. Again, YouTube has expanded what verboten means. A couple years from now, probably you won't be able to discuss politics at all. They'll say, well, it's been objectively determined that Joe Biden is popular. You're not allowed to question the polling aggregate anymore. Something like that. It's entirely arbitrary and fucking stupid. Anyway, now, by the way, say fuck in every video so that their ads won't automatically run on them. YouTube has started putting ads on some videos, even with AdSense turned off, but I swear like a drunken sailor, so I don't fucking care because the algorithms will keep them off mine. Good. I don't want to contribute to that nonsense. Anyway, Biden, much like McAuliffe, much like the people in, I believe it's in Portland, they've stopped the gifted courses in schools. They're planning to phase them out in New York. If you're in New York, by the way, right now, and you've got a kid in the public schooling system, now's the time to either move them into a private school or get them tutoring or something, because they're not going to be having honors courses for very long. So if little Jimmy happens to be 3 grades ahead, sorry Jimmy, there is no college prep anymore. We determined that there were too many white and East Asian people taking those courses, and it was creating inequality, so fuck you. The irony is that it'll create much more inequality between rich and poor people. How rich people tend to have their kids tutored, or they have them in a private school. They'll be exempt from this decision. Publicly schooled kids tend to be from the working or the middle class, or they're poor. Little Jimmy's parents, therefore, probably don't have the money to also get a tutor to buff up their educational skills. They've been cutting all sorts of things, and this is happening at the university level too. UVM last year cut geology as a major. It cut a bunch of history courses. I think it literally eliminated the philosophy department, rolled it up with history or something, or anthropology or something like that, while introducing a bunch of new women's studies and stuff like that. Now, with public education in the lower sense, we're talking about public policy makers. They claim to be liberal, right? Biden, McAuliffe, whatever. For years and years, they've rambled on and on about how the right wing hates education, they hate schools, they want you to be ignorant. They want girls not to know about the penis, and they want them to be barefoot and in the kitchen because that's God's command, and all of this stuff. And we don't need them sex ed courses. We don't need them history lessons from one of them liberal textbooks. Fuck education. Teachers' unions suck. But the people that are actually denigrating the educational capacity of the country and of various states are liberal individuals. That's what's happening. We've gone goddamn topsy-turvy. 10 years ago, I would have agreed with that assessment. I would have looked at the T-evangelicals or something and said, yeah, I don't think these people want to have a reasonable educational budget. Now, though, we've come full circle, and the real problem has become the overt federalization and denigration of education from the top down by people that have no problem with pumping a lot of money into it. They just don't want the educational system to work. So what Joe Biden wants is for you to shut the fuck up if you're a parent, or a student, by the way, and is threatening people literally by trying to unleash the FBI through Merrick Garland on anyone that protests the teaching of critical race theory. A self-refuting, oft-debunked hypothetical field that doesn't even deserve the title of theory, that is literally repackaged Marxism. I've already explained this. They don't even hide the fact that it's Marxist in derivation. It's openly professed by people who developed the theory. It's openly alluded to. In fact, it's one of the 5 main points thereof, that Marxism influenced what became critical race theory, which might be why, if you've studied anything about Marxism, you'll find that critical race theory is nothing more than Marxism, in which the concept of class has been replaced with the concept of race. That's because the Marxists lost the economic and social argument of the atomic era and had to rebrand in order to try again, because they are still attempting to subvert Western civilization. Much like before, they're encountering stiff resistance. Much like before, there are elements of the legal system that are trying to prevent that from happening because they're freaking out about a resurgent populism in the United States. This is all about them fearing a bunch of populist MAGA hat wearers, libertarians, and people from maybe the further left that aren't Marxist aligned in the cultural sense, as well as groups that are more nationalistic. Because if you put all those groups together, at this point they outnumber the lame establishmentarians, because nobody likes the rhinos and the liberals, so-called. But they're not really liberal. If your suggestion for the educational system is that we're not going to have gifted courses because, screw the poor if they have a smart kid. They'll have to shell out more money for a tutor. By the way, try paying the cost for that with the hyperinflation we're currently undergoing. We're going to teach kids how to pole dance. We're going to go to remote learning. You'll still have to pay the same school taxes, but it's all going to be remote, so the school itself isn't even open. So the students aren't getting the lunch. They're not getting gym time or anything like that. They're not getting access to any of the textbooks and equipment and shit there, but you still have to pay the same. And by the way, we're going to tell your kid to wear a mask when they're literally alone in their bedroom. We had one case, it was I think late last year, some kid doing remote learning, he had a BB gun up on the wall, and then the cops raided his parents' house because they're like, oh, this gun looks improperly stored. Of course, a BB gun is not treated the same as an actual firearm. And they were like pounding on the door and interrogating the mother and shit like that. This is a government that is out of control. It does not care about you or your kids. It doesn't care about me. It doesn't care about you. There is nobody in the country that Joe Biden cares about other than himself and his donors and his immediate inner circle, which probably includes some members of his family. He seems to, for some reason, really love his crack-smoking son, the one that literally cheated on his dead brother's wife that he then shacked up with a stripper, got the stripper pregnant, lied about it all while doing a crack orgy. He was on a massive crack binge. By the way, Joe Biden is very fond of him, which is why anytime he talks about his son, he has to say, oh, Bo. It's the other son that I'm talking about, the one that actually wasn't a shitty person, and wants to teach kids literal lies. We've got woke math, with Common Core, which is even worse than No Child Left Behind. When W involved himself in that, I thought we had seen the end-all be-all of dumbing down testing standards. We have universities that have gone remote only. We've got universities eliminating ACT, SAT requirements. We've got increased dumbing down of the educational system. It's not conservatives doing it. It's gotten to the point where I think the people on the right wing are more likely to want higher testing requirements and more mathematical rigors. Like they're going to be the hard asses that your kids don't like simply because they want them to get higher scores or something. We are not going to be able to continue to compete with other developed nations if we dumb down the population, but I know why this is. This is basically a kickback to the rich. They will pull further ahead than the poor if the poor are incapable of keeping up because they don't get the gifted courses. They don't get proper education. You think CRT is being taught in homeschooled families? Many of which are at least in the upper middle class because one parent has to have the leisure to do the homeschooling. Just to be clear, most homeschooling, it's not hippie Hannah with 12 kids and the love beads and meditation as part of her love triangle hippie circle of weed growers. That's occasional, but it's not common. Mostly it's the urban chic sort of upper middle class parents that are going to do the homeschooling. The rich, they have private schools that are as exclusive as goddamn Harvard or Yale. None of them are going to teach critical race theory except to tell people critical race theory is horseshit. And it is horseshit, but by the way, you can use it to fool other people. That's what they're going to learn. They're going to learn cutthroat business and political practices. That's because they're the kids of the rich and famous, the rich and powerful. But your kids, no, they're not allowed to learn the truth because the truth isn't good for the authoritarian bottom line now, is it? That's about all. Peace out.